Hi, thank you so much for joining us today for our first episode of Weekly Wisdom. My name is Bridget Burns. I'm the Executive Director of the University Innovation Alliance.
And I'm Jeff Salingo, an author and columnist and special advisor at Arizona State University.
Great. And it's Monday, so we wanted to create something that would help you start the week with a little bit of inspiration and wisdom. And this is where we're going to be talking to college and university presidents and chancellors who are navigating the challenges of today in real time.
Well, and Bridget, our first guest is somebody we know really well, the president of Arizona State University, Michael Crow, who has led the institution since 2002. I first met President Crow when I was a writer and editor at the Chronicle of Higher Education more than a decade ago. And he's really one of the few presidents who I met back then in my previous work who's still a university president in some way. And I think that when I think about the most innovative presidents who I think are well positioned for this moment in time, it's those who are in what I would describe as their second or third phase of their presidency, right? They've been around long enough at their own institution to understand the gravity of this moment and also to understand how to respond to this moment. Most presidents who are kind of new to this vision are just starting out in their presidency, and they're just trying to figure out their way. They're trying to figure out not only where to go on their campuses, but what vision to put forward in that presidency. And so, Mike, welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you, Bridget.
And how are you holding up right now? And any advice for other presidents in this moment?
Well, we've been in this distributed mode for a month. And, the interesting thing for the team and myself and our faculty and our staff is that I don't think any of us have worked harder than we're working right now. We are full bore, full on, doing everything we can to deliver the full suite of services that we have, to deliver the full suite of educational opportunity. And I think in terms of holding up, it's just a function of working in this distributed fashion and driving as hard as you can, picking up the speed of innovation, which we have been doing, advancing new ideas, which we have been doing, and trying to adjust to everything that we're encountering. So all in all, at least for me, it's been the most invigorating time I think I've had in a long time.
Well, and I know that when I last saw you in person in early March, we were talking about what was going on, and I could sense that this was a very serious time. Even before folks were talking about it, you were definitely planning ahead. And you shared with me an analogy that I think would be very useful for our viewers about comparing leading with sailing. And can you share with us that perspective so folks can use it to inform their thinking?
Yeah, Bridget, last time I saw you was at JFK on March 5th, flying to Las Vegas, where my last outside meeting was March 6th, before returning to what we then began to ford up. And so the sailing analogy is that, all of us in academia are at sea. We encounter lots of wave conditions. In general, we encounter steady, stable seas, but now we're in the middle of very heavy seas, 30 to 40 foot waves on a regular basis. We have the pandemic issues, we have financial issues, we have organizational issues, culture issues, all these things going on at the same time. And so the key from my perspective is how to stabilize the ship as one's moving through the heavy seas that we're in now, basically maintaining seaworthiness while then also preparing for the less than certain, but nonetheless possible, large, potentially damaging waves, and to sort of look at it in this way. That is, to prepare yourself to move forward irregardless, to adjust and to adapt, to trim, to change, to alter your course a little bit, to make certain kinds of adjustments, and then to prepare. So adjustment, adaptation, and preparation now are essential. If you hold the line and you try to maintain your ship conditions, your ship operations in the same way that you've always done it, then you won't be prepared for the present conditions or the oncoming wave that hasn't gotten here yet.
Mike, we've talked a lot over the years about kind of the leadership frameworks that leaders use at different moments in their careers and whatever crisis is facing them at the moment. What kind of leader do we need right now of a college or university? What kind of framework is helping you get through this moment or think about this moment?
Well, for me, the framework is what I call offense. That is, what do we need to do to be better prepared for what lies ahead? So it's likely that we need to introduce more changes, cooperate with others, partner with others, league with others, engage in helping higher education overall to be successful. We need to broaden our thinking of education itself and not leave K-12 behind or out or disconnected. I think the approach that we've taken here at a major public university, major public research university, is what do we have that can be good for the general order? All assets, all things, all tools. Our library has gone through manifest changes to be able to be more available to the public. And so the key from my perspective is not to maintain some notion that you're going to just batten down the hatches of your ship and weather the storm, but you've got to find ways to connect, link, and modify what you're doing along the way. So it's this attitude of transformation.
All right, that's helpful. So for a lot of college leaders right now, they are facing the challenge of being a human being in this moment, which is, trying to, sift through everything that's going on, and we're being barraged with news constantly. Many folks are dealing with personal tragedy, and so there's just this whole human element of it. But leaders right now are having to do the hard thing, which is to not let the chaos of this moment be a distraction, to be able to be as clear-eyed as possible. And that's really hard when you can't control any of the wave. You can't control any of the conditions. So what are you doing that's helping you stay focused on leading in this moment and not getting distracted by just how much is going on and changing every second?
So the key is to stay focused on the outcome, and the outcome is, sort of where our duty lies. And our duty lies to maintain the environment by which learners can learn and they can advance successfully, adjusting to, the realities of the COVID pandemic on an operational basis, advancing all of our assets in ways in which conditions that we're operating in. And so you change them. And so you can't worry about, where the waves are coming from. You can't worry about trying to control all these factors or control all these variables. We have a responsibility. We are a critical industry as they are defined. Education is essential to the success, short-term, mid-term, and long-term of the country. We have to then take the mindset of we can't falter. I've been a little bit concerned about people saying, well, we can't do this or we can't do that, so that can't work. Let's just let it go. Educational enterprises that haven't been able to reassemble, that haven't figured out that that this could go on for some period of time. We're prepared to operate in whatever mode we have to operate in for as long as necessary, or to modify in whatever way that's necessary. We have contingency plans across an entire spectrum of operational environments. Could we operate in this distributed fashion for a year? Could we do that for longer? Could we operate in different ways of thinking about what's the nature of education? Could we work more significantly with employers and companies and corporations to change the way that adult and ongoing education continues? And so the notion is stimulating the way in which you do not become concerned with the things you can't control. I can't control the spread of the virus, or we just listen to the CDC and to the Arizona Department of Health, and then we implement what they say, and then we move forward, while also dealing with 75,000 students who are typically on campus. We have a couple of thousand students still living in our residence halls. We're taking care of them and nurturing them, and deploying our telehealth and telemedicine assets, moving into academic advising in whatever mode, like this mode that we're talking on here, making all of this happen. And so the key is, I think from a mindset perspective, is just to focus on your responsibility and the delivery of our core service.
So Mike, how do you talked about adjusting to realities. If you were in the midst, either there at ASU or for any institution out there or any organization, if you were in the midst of a strategic plan, of a vision 2 months ago, do you pivot from that vision? Do you put it on hold? Like, what do you do in this moment now that clearly all your energy is directed to dealing with this crisis? What happens to the vision that you had 2 months ago?
Well, I mean, all plans. I mean, I think it was Eisenhower that said that planning is necessary and unbelievably important and completely worthless once the battle begins. And so what we're involved in is constant planning that's adjusting on an ongoing basis. So we're planning and adjusting, planning and adjusting, planning and adjusting, moving back and forth. And so if anything, we've intensified certain elements of our vision. we're still acquiring technology. We're still doing technology deals. We're still negotiating ways to acquire new technologies to operate in virtual reality and augmented reality teaching. We're working to secure new technology manifestations so that we can operate in this distributed fashion. In fact, I would say that one thing that we've learned is that we're a different and better institution than we were 4 weeks ago. We have more capabilities than we had before. We didn't realize that some of our Zoom-based teaching platforms, something we call ASU Sync, we didn't realize that ASU Sync might be better for certain teaching modalities, not all, but for some. And so what we've learned is that we've added dimensionality to the implementation of our vision. I think that it's an error to sit back and say that, well, we're just going to weather the storm and then relaunch the vision. These pandemics, this is the latest, not the last. The globalization of the planet to 8 billion people in highly urbanized settings is creating all kinds of complexities. And historic institutions that are non-adaptive, they're going to have difficulty adjusting to these kinds of high-speed changes. And so what we're looking at is how to instill the ability to adjust and keep performing our mission as a core part of what we do.
And just one quick follow-up on that. How do you avoid, so for example, these Zoom-based platforms really helped in ASU Sync. How do you avoid, if we're back on campus and somewhat normal by the fall, how do you avoid, or whenever we are, how do you avoid kind of slipping back to kind of the old ways of doing things then?
So for us, it's having an understanding of the breadth of people that need to learn. So it's going to be a fantastic privilege, when everybody can reassemble back on campus, and the few people who have the privilege of being in face-to-face full immersion. Well, that's not most people. That's only a few people. And so it turns out, however, what many colleges and universities have to offer is of great value to many more people. We've just developed a whole new way to find a way to project that. Just like we're doing right here, a two-dimensional face-to-face digital immersion, what we're calling ASU Sync. This is a whole new way of working. Well, we didn't really realize how well it could work. We're offering 14,000 sessions, Zoom sessions, I think today and tomorrow. Now, that doesn't mean that's the way we're going to work. And so we won't fall back to the way things were, because how could we? I mean, we now know that the world is much more complicated than perhaps we thought.
And we just received a question out from our viewers. How is ASU working to ensure students, especially first-gen low income, are not dissuaded from enrolling fall term? I know it's not an ASU specific question. I think every college and university is struggling with this, about the intimidation factor and folks trying to figure out what to do. So do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, Matt, that's a good question from Matt. And so it is, there are millions of Pell eligible students and millions of students going to college from lower income families. And so the key is projecting that, we've got your back, we're with you, we're working with you, we're going to adjust to your circumstances and help you to overcome whatever stress or impact has occurred within your family. We've got huge numbers of millions of families deeply affected economically here. And so we have to be adjusting and interacting with them in new ways. And so the key is massive communication, massive outreach, helping people to understand that life goes on and that there's ways to help life to go on, even in the middle of a pandemic.
Great. We also got another question about if there are any resources that you need from the community to make online learning dimensionality even better. Obviously, folks, we don't know the answers about next flu season or how long this continues, but are there things that would be useful coming from the broader community that would help to support what you're already building in the ASU ecosystem?
Yeah, we need for people to realize that this can actually work. What we have some perhaps older generation, my generation, baby boomer faculty members who are resistant to the notion that there's other ways to teach or ways to enhance teaching. And so, we've got people that are out there that are thinking, well, how can this work? How can this possibly be a tool? Well, it is a tool. It does work. And I was listening to my youngest daughter watching a Netflix movie while chatting with her friends who are all scattered from the college that they go to all around the country, all interacting with each other at the same time. And I'm just like, who could have thought that such things would be possible? And now imagine then that as these really advanced interactive teaching modalities, bringing in different perspectives. So what I'm looking for from the community is just open-mindedness. And second, from the community is not to give up. So we've got people that think that this is like a hurricane. The hurricane is coming through and it's doing a bunch of damage and then we'll just rebuild. No, this is an adjustment to the reality of complex biological systems that we're going to have to now figure out how to work with over time. And so we've got to not just stop, we have to just keep moving.
Mike, what's inspiring you right now? I mean, it's kind of overwhelming, I think, for a lot of people, particularly college and university presidents or anybody leading organizations now. Where are you getting your inspiration now, and what's inspiring you?
Well, so the amazing thing to me is to watch the people that are in the front line treating the people that actually have the virus, and their courage and their adaptability and their ingenuity, and then turning that back to our faculty and our students and our staff. We have a group of students that have built a distributed COVID PPE manufacturing system using distributed 3D printers with people working in a distributed fashion, making all these component parts. I mean, they just thought this thing up on their own. It's fantastic. The speed and the level of caring by our staff has been very inspiring to me, and I think also in general the power of the community to just sort of it's amazing to me the amount of order we still have. Everything is still moving orderly, mostly everything, and so it's very inspiring to me to see people adjust. We're doing all of this so that everyone can be safe when everyone's not affected by this virus in the same way. So there's a deep inspiration, social, I mean, almost moral inspiration, that we care enough about other people that we've decided to take on this particular route, to take on this virus so that we can get through this the best we can. That's deeply inspiring to me and indicates where we've gotten as a society, both within the US and globally. It didn't used to be that things were dealt with this way. And so they were dealt with in much harsher ways in the past. And that's not the way we're dealing with things now. So that then it means that we've really evolved immensely. And that's very inspiring to me.
That's great. We did receive one last question that I actually think is helpful. So because Jeff and I have both worked with you, we know that you take in information from movies, from books, from all kinds of places, and you weave it together to see what will serve the moment. So the question was, what books are you reading? Not that I think anyone's able to do like joyful reading right now, but I am guessing that you are drawing upon some books that you've read in the past or something that you've seen in the past that is helping you think about this. And if so, can you share that so folks can?
Well, I read a lot of books at the same time. And so when you read them, I just finished The British Are Coming, which tells you what the actual cost of the American Revolution was. Not the idealized ideological outcome, but the cost in human blood and sacrifice and financial disruption and everything. And so you look at that and you say, huh, I live in a country that's a product of their efforts. I mean, it's deeply inspiring to me. And then my family and I are spending a lot of time, watching funny movies by Jack Black and people like that. So we can sit around and laugh. But in terms of inspirational things, I mean, if one looks back in history and see what people have done in the past to rise up to challenges, there's deep inspiration from what people have been able to do. And one group of people that are out there on the front line are our scientists. Who are working 24/7, just in unbelievable. So I went back and read Jonas Salk and his entire biography and everything that he did and how he worked and how determined he was. And, you look at people like Louis Pasteur and other scientists that were able to step up through time. We're going to have that again, and those things are going to happen. And so all that stuff is very inspiring to me.
Great. So, well, we hope that this has been inspiring to you at home. Thanks for the comments and the questions. We know we had a lot of folks watching live. So this is Jeff and I's first stab at Weekly Wisdom, but we will be back next week. And our next guest is going to be President Michael Sorrell of Paul Quinn College. So our hope is that this will give you just some different perspective to go forth in the week ahead. a little bit of inspiration and perhaps just a little bit of boost rather than, I know some folks have been having the Sunday scaries. So our hope is that we can address that as much as possible. So Mike, thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you, Mike.
We have a lot going on. So, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks so much.